Hello and welcome back to the channel. So it's time for the weekly build update on the 81 BMW R100 CS. I've done a couple of hours in the garage since I last made a video, so there's a few little bits and pieces to show you, but we'll also have a little bit of a chat about some of the stuff that's still to come in terms of this build, some of the little bits and pieces that I either need to kind of find a solution for or just get on the bike. So let's jump in, I'll show you where we're at and what we've got to do. All right, so let's kick this episode off at the back of the bike because that's where most of the attention's been spent over the last session in the garage. And it's been all about getting these luggage racks installed on the back of the bike correctly. Now, I've had a little bit of a faff getting these in place because of the suspension. I've changed the suspension for slightly wider shocks, so we've had a bit of a clearance issue. And I've been trying to troubleshoot that because at the end of the day, this bike is all about getting out there, doing a little bit of touring, going out and seeing the world on this bike. And it's really important that I've got a good, solid luggage solution to accommodate that. Now, let's have a look at these shocks. Big, fat Hagon nitro shocks. And as the arm of the luggage rack sweeps past these shocks, you can see we've got quite a tight clearance here, but clearance nonetheless, and then it connects to the frame. But you'll notice here there's a 6mm spacer, so this isn't making direct contact with the frame anymore like it normally would. We've got this standoff spacer sitting between the steel arm, the chromed steel arm, and the frame in order just to kick it out enough. So as you can see here, we've got clearance now between the arm and the shock. Now the original shocks are over here. Now these aren't original, but they are very much in line with the originals, and a lot of people installed these on these old Airheads. This is an original Coney dial-a-ride shock, and its outer diameter is about 60mm, the outer diameter of the spring. It's a really nice looking shock actually, but it's just a bit old and a bit tired, but this is an original Coney. So, you know, maybe at some point you could get these rebuilt and put them back on the bike, but I'm waiting for something a little bit more modern just to make it perform a little bit better. But ran into that issue because these have got an outer diameter of 72mm. So the difference in circumference, or diameter to start with, is 12mm. So 12mm diameter difference. So that's a 6mm circumference difference, which is why I went with a 6mm spacer to kick it out in line with the additional girth of this shock. And it seems to have worked. At the moment, the bike's jacked up. So it's at maximum extension on this shock. So it's not ever going to get any closer than that. This is the shock at its maximum range, so it can't get any closer to these slightly fatter coils here, which start to kind of manifest as as we go up the shock. So the coils closest to the arm are a little bit more narrow, but because we're at maximum extension, we're not ever going to interact with these wider coils here. So as you drop the bike down, the arm actually ends up sitting kind of down here actually, and as you're riding it's going to be bouncing up and down, probably more in this range than it will be in this range, if that makes any sense. So that's about as long as the shock's ever going to get with hardly any weight at the moment on this back wheel. So I think we're in a good place. If we need any more clearance, it would just be a case of a slightly wider spacer to achieve that. But we don't want to do that too much because we might end up deforming the look of the thing on the back of the bike, which at the moment you can't really tell at all. It's such a small amount, it doesn't really make any difference whatsoever. So yeah, happy with how that's turned out. Next thing I did was I installed the rear mudguard and the little toolbox on the back here, and I've got all the original stickers still on there. I've just cleaned it up, haven't really done anything to it. I was thinking about stripping it and having it painted a nice kind of gloss black or something like that, but to be honest, you hardly see this, and a lot of this stuff where it's a bit worn out and all that would be kind of under the battery tray and under the seat and all that. On the side it looks in pretty good condition, but if it does bug me, I can whip it off, no sweat, and get a nice gloss black on there and maybe some gold pinstripes or something like that. It's an option if we want to tidy things up a little bit further. For now, all of the mounting hardware and brackets have all been replaced. There's little steel plates that sit underneath all the points where it mounts to the bike. So here, we've still got one on top here, so you can see that in there. And then there's another one where the tail section mounts to the bike as well. And have a look at the state of one of the old ones. That is what came off this bike. Absolutely rotten. Rotten. And a lot of the hardware was like that, you know, 42 years of being used out and about on the road. This stuff being underneath the back of the bike, it has not fared particularly well. Another part that was problematic was this indicator bracket bar here. So as you can see here, this is beautiful shiny stainless steel, and I replaced the original chrome bracket that had completely blown out. All the chrome had popped, all the steel underneath was super rusty, so I'm really pleased I managed to get that back on the bike before installing the tail section. It looks good, it's original, it's cool, I love it. What else can I show you? Well, here's the thing. So the handlebars are now back on the bike. These handlebars have been completely restored by RS Chrome, who took the original rusty bars away that had been painted black, well, half painted black. It was a real mess. And these have been re-chromed. So you can see here, beautiful re-chroming across the bars. And then I had Ragged Moto take care of the Cerakoting on the controls. I then took the freshly Cerakoted controls. These were all obviously blasted before they were Cerakoted, because you need to do that to get the key and the Cerakote. We've then replaced the brake master cylinder mechanism. I replaced the reservoir and all the hardware for that and the rubber seals inside there. So everything that you can see here has either been blasted and restored and replated, or parts replaced, like the rubber grips and all that on both sides. So I've still got a decision to make around what to do with the choke. Option number one, we can go factory style and we can install this little choke plate up here. The original one was all worn out, so we can put that back on there, make that look amazing. Then we can get our choke cables back on and run them back down to the carburetors, which are here, by the way. So here's the Bing constant velocity carbs that are all ready to go back on. All rebuilt, aqua blasted, the works. The other option we've got is I've got this kit in here. I talked about this in the past, but this kit eliminates all of the hardware up on the bars for the choke. So this little blanking plate here takes the place of the choke lever, so we get rid of all this, put the blanking plate on. No cables coming down, so we don't have to worry about more kind of clutter on the bike. And we just have these little pulleys here which attach to the choke arm on the carburetor. So it just gives it a cleaner, tidier look, gets rid of a couple of cables and gets rid of that lever up on the handlebars. But you know, it's something you normally see on like the kind of calf racers and all that, with these older bikes when people customize them. But you know, just a little kind of custom touch there. We've got to do the braking system, front and back. So for the front, we've got these newly reworked calipers. So these are original calipers that I had Cerakoted, and also had to do a little bit of work to recondition the mating surfaces inside. So those were remachined by Stratos Performance. I made a whole video on the amazing work that Luke over at Stratos did, which was fantastic. We've got new braided brake lines for the front there from Goodrich, so we're ready to go on. Just got to get all that kind of bled through and all that good stuff. And then I've got to do like the rear brakes as well. So we've got the big lever here, big foot lever, along with all the associated parts that connect to the back of the final drive. Everything that I've got to do still on this bike is in this kind of sandwich bag style filing system. So for example, that is everything I need to do for the airbox. So that's all the plumbing for the airbox, all the little elbows that connect from the filtered air through to carburetor, all the little breather hoses and things like that. We've got our gear linkage to do as well, because down here on the transmission we've got our kind of main pivot arm in, but I still need to put the rider foot pegs on and connect all the kind of gear linkage up. So that's all good to go. Talking of rider foot pegs, they're in here, so that I think this is one of them. Yeah, can't really see it, but that is freshly powder coated. And then we've got new rubbers that will go on there. So these are actually BMW parts. BMW still make these. And I'm a little bit upset about what happened to my rear pegs. So as you can see here, these pegs are attached, but they're not my original pegs, because I sent my original pegs off to get powder coated, and the guys at the powder coating place cut off the rubber, powder coated the pegs, sent them back to me, and I was like, fine, I'll just go and grab some new rubbers. Turns out you can't really do that. Firstly, the company that made these, Denfield, I think they're called, I think they're long gone, not in business anymore, so you can't buy them from them. There's nothing really on the aftermarket, and even if there was, you can't really just go and slide a rubber back on here all that easily because of the design of the peg. So actually what you have to do is buy the entire assembly with the rubber pre-installed, which meant that all that work powder coating the original pegs was wasted, and in fact ruined the pegs because they cut the rubbers off and couldn't get a replacement. So these are used parts from Motorworks. I got them for 22 quid each. I've got another one over here. So lesson learnt, don't send these off to get powder coated, because they'll have to cut the rubbers off for the curing process. They bake them, and you won't be able to replace your rubbers. Unless of course I've just missed the fact that there is a way of buying an aftermarket rubber, but I couldn't find one. So yep, bit of a bummer that. So exhaust will have to go on as well at some point, and here is one of the 38mm header pipes that I've pulled down just to show you. So I'm still in two minds about whether or not to replace the header pipes on this bike. Now that's going to be an expensive endeavour, because they're about 300 quid for a set of headers. Not cheap. And the reason I might do it is because if we just look, this is going to focus, if we just look at the underside of this header here, this is why we don't jack our bikes up on our pipes. Because look at that, it's all a bit, I'm assuming that's what's happened. It's right on the underneath of the header, so you wouldn't really see it, but I still find it quite annoying. So despite the fact I've kind of polished these up and made them look acceptable, I don't like the fact they're a little bit beaten up. So I might bite the bullet and get a new set of those. That's a new air filter, so all the air box needs to be rebuilt with all the plumbing in there. Another sandwich bag here this is all the fuel filter bits and pieces. So we're going to run inline filters, as well as, I don't know if you can see in there, but we've also got fuel tap rebuild kits and new meshes and all that kind of stuff. So all that needs to go on. We've got new mirrors, reproductions from a company called Bum. Love it. Chrome mirrors to go back on the bike at some point as well. And then other little bits and pieces, all in there, everything in its own individual bag. One of the bits I'm slightly dreading is I've got to get underneath the bike and refit the oil strainer. So that's the oil strainer in there. So I have to get it up on its side stand. I don't have a lift, anything like that. I know. So be over on the side stand, and then we'll have to crawl on our knees and get under there to attach that to the bottom of the crank, and also the sump as well. So we've got the freshly vapor blasted sump to go on. We've got all new drain plugs, magnetic drain plugs will go in, so that will all be good. Still got fluids to put in, so obviously oil. We're going to run Silcoline 20 to 50, Dino Juice, proper mineral stuff, which should be good. And we've got some transmission fluid there, because we've still got to put all the transmission fluid in the final drive. So that's currently empty, so I've got my little green stickers on there to remind me that's empty. And then the little swing arm section has a little bit of fluid as well. So we've got to get that done. And then, we've got to do the electrics. So here, another sandwich bag full of goodies. That's all the electrics, the new coil, spark plugs, HT leads. And over there in that box is the headlight and the main loom, which I think is good to go. And then we've got, this will be an easy one to fit, but the new dash, which will sit on the freshly powder coated bracket, which is on there. So piece by piece, we are making our way through all the different bits and pieces we need to do to get this bike finished. And it won't be long before we're ready to get this thing fired up, hopefully. Now, this is a 0 hours engine, as I said in previous videos. It's completely rebuilt. New pistons, new nicker seal, new bearings, new valves, new valve seats, everything you could throw at it has been done. So there's a lot in my mind around all the things that could go wrong when it comes to starting it up. Obviously, I've got to get oil in it. I've got to, give it a couple of cranks over just on the starter motor with no plugs in, just to get oil pressure up. And then we'll put those plugs in and we'll fire it up, and hopefully nothing goes bang. But as I have said, it's been sat for quite a while now, and it feels quite tight. Feels pretty tight. So hopefully it's okay. I've managed to turn it over on the flywheel with a screwdriver. So we'll see. What can we do other than find out? And that is exactly what we'll do. So there it is. That's where we're currently at. I think the next session in the garage will be probably the carburetors. We'll get those on, and then we'll do the brake system as well, so front and back brakes. Then we'll chuck the electrics on, and then we'll be ready to fire it up and see how we're going. And obviously all the paint and everything which has been done. That beautiful gloss black tank from Ace Classic, and our newly painted cowl and things like that, which is currently over there. Everything's all in boxes, all protected. That's the absolute last thing we want to be messing around with, for obvious reasons. So we'll get to that point in the next few weeks. That's it for now. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next one, ride safe.